So the report that's come out today is based on a handful of focus groups with parents around the country. And while it genuinely does shed a lot of insight, there's still so much more research to be done here to really understand what those barriers are that are preventing parents from getting their children to school. And we want to see widespread investment in understanding this problem so we can make sure the policy response is really targeted at getting parents the help they need to get their children to school. Because we know from all the polling, Vanessa, that parents are aspirational for their children. They want them to do well. They want them to have great lives. So what are the barriers that are preventing them from doing that? That's what we really want to understand.
Let me ask Anne whether she really thinks it would be a good use of anybody's money to launch inquiries that cost always a huge amount and take ages to come up with any conclusion into why it is that the children are not attending school. Should that be the focus of money and the focus of interest, or should it simply be directing whatever funds we have towards making sure the children do come to school, rather than asking why they're not, saying that they must, this is an unconscionable state of affairs, your child must attend school, what are the reasons your child isn't coming in? Now come in, the end. Not we need to look at all the reasons why your child's not here, just get your child into school. You did it before COVID, you've got to do it after COVID.
Well, I think there is an urgency about it. Of course, we need to know why parents and why children aren't getting there, but there is an urgency about it. Look, some places are doing it really well. It means family workers with families, supporting them. It means youth workers working with children, sometimes that are able to work out plans to get them back into school, but also rebuilding that kind of communication with parents. Parents seem to be completely disillusioned with the education system at the moment and almost have given up on some of it. We need to really find a way to invigorate that understanding that being in school is good, learning is good, and actually this is so important for your children's development. But I think it will take investment to fix it, but it's investment that we all know is needed for families and for children too.
Baz, I tell you what's fixed it for me. Just Anne Longfield saying, you can tell she went to school because she's really good on maths and percentages. Listen, if they miss one day every fortnight, that's 10% of their education. As soon as she said that, a light of understanding went, oh my God, you can't do that. You can't just allow laxity or lassitude or inertia or habitual behaviour that you got used to in lockdown. You can't allow that to impede your children by 10% of their education. Isn't that just something that needs to be proclaimed from the stage in school assembly, told to the parents at parents' evenings? And not only that, maybe the subject of one of our magnificent public education campaigns. You know, we all learned about condoms, we all learned about clunk click every trip, we all learned about don't drink and drive, all that stuff. It did go in because there was so much money and so much ingenuity ploughed into making sure we got the message. Isn't this a key message? If your child misses one day of school every fortnight, listen to Anne Longfield, it's 10% of their education. You can't afford to penalise them that way. For God's sake, send them into school. Isn't that it?
No, I think I can definitely envisage a great social messaging campaign around that, Vanessa. But I think we really want to produce a long-term solution to this. We need to understand what those barriers are, because the scale of this problem is very large, as we've been discussing, and eliminating those barriers will involve understanding them. I think a key part of the message here needs to be that one thing that's covered in the report today is the idea that there was a social contract between parents and the government, which was that parents would send their child to school every day. But what's been neglected in this report and in a lot of this conversation is that the other part of that contract was that the government would provide your child with a great education and the opportunity to have a great job, which would allow them to make a living and have a really valuable life. And if we look at the state of our country at the moment, it does not look like the government are pulling their weight there. They are not holding up their side of the contract. So in addition to that social messaging that Anne has been talking about and you've been talking about, Vanessa, we also really need to have the government stepping up here to show that going to school will lead to your child having a better future. And that's going to involve investment in our education system, so our children get a world-class education, but also investment in our economy to make sure there are great opportunities for jobs all across our country.
Listen, the country isn't perfect, but isn't it crystal clear that if you go to school, you will receive an education? If you don't, you won't. And also, as Anna said at the beginning, you will be socialised, you will meet other people, you will broaden as a personality, you will make friends, you will learn how to operate in an environment that doesn't just involve your own family. In every way, being at school rather than being left at home will enhance your prospects of a career, of a job, of earning a living, of making friends, of falling in love, of all of the things that everybody aspires to for themselves and for their children. And it's not just me romanticising it. I mean, the government doesn't have to do anything at all for what I've just said to be true. It is true. You do need to go to school if you're a child. You need to go to school in every way. It will enhance your prospects. Whether the country's perfect, whether there are wonderful jobs awaiting everybody, or whatever it is, it will still be much better for you if you go than if you don't go, won't it?
I, of course, agree, Vanessa. I'm certainly not making the case that children should not go to school. What I'm making the case for is that for lots of families who live in communities around the country where there is very little economic opportunity, there is a very unclear lack of relationship between doing well at school and being able to get a good job in that community. It's not going to be obvious to those parents that sending your child to school is going to be able to achieve a better future for your child. And part of that is explain to those parents that change can happen and that school can be part of that. But also part of it is investing and making sure the economic opportunity is there in those local areas, investing in communities outside of London to create jobs, to create opportunities so that parents can see if my child does do well at school, they can do this qualification after school, they can go on to have this great job in their local area. If the jobs aren't there, then it's very difficult for parents to see that relationship.
Thank you both very much indeed.